Hello everyone, this is Amina Slimani. I am a PhD student at the Economic Department at the University of Qadi Ayad of Marrakesh. I am here today to present my article titled Crowdfunding and Financial Inclusion. It is a systematic literature review and a conceptual framework about the same subject. It will be presented by me, and the work was supervised by my professor Mustafa Ziki. Well, this paper breaks from a situation of the post-financial crisis of 2008. It resulted in a shortage of bank loans, as we all know. The subprime crisis spread on other markets, namely the interbank lending market, that impacted negatively the access of individuals and companies to financial funding. This paper too comes in the context of climate change. It repercussion or results on financial market. The damage associated to individuals losing their asset lead them to inability of honoring their commitments to banks, namely to repay their loans. So all these reasons have led banks to impose strict lending policies after the recession. This situation made it impossible for small businesses to ask or to find funding for their businesses. So they started to look or to seek for new suitable business model, which is for our case, namely crowdfunding. Let's now try to define what we mean by crowdfunding. When we are talking about crowdfunding, we refer to words composed by two words or two names, crowds and funding, which means funding by crowds or asking or seeking funds in crowds. Literally, crowdfunding is inspired by two concepts, microfinance and crowdsourcing. Microfinance was developed, or the idea of microfinance developed by Murdoch in 1999, and for the crowdsourcing, the term was used for the first time by Jeff Howe on 2006. The most suitable or the general definition for crowdfunding was developed by Schweinbacher and Larald on 2010. They defined crowdfunding as an open call, primarily via internet or via platforms, asking or seeking for provision of financial resources, either as donation or in exchange for some form of reward or voting rights, in order to support initiative for specific purposes. We have basically four models of crowdfunding. The first one is reward-based crowdfunding. As the name shows, it's an asset class in exchange for a reward, gifts, or products. The second one is equity-based investment. This one is it's about providing investors with a percentage stake in exchange of their funding or of their investment. The third type is based on lending. It's quite similar to the traditional bank lending. The crowd lending here is the granting of loan in exchange of an interest rate, which is of course low than the one that is offered by the traditional banking system. It's offered to company or individuals. Donation based or charity, this model is offered normally and basically to artistic projects as music project or like book production. Is to fund ideas and projects in the social and charitable fields. also in the no-profit organization like funding medical treatment as well. The purpose of this article is to provide a systematic review of the theoretical and empirical literature on crowdfunding that is related to financial inclusion. This will result in having or collecting different conceptual reflections that we had found in our research and in all our database of people that we collected. It would be structured, or it will be structured by different actors, namely capital seeker, providers, platforms, and different theories related to crowdfunding and the link between crowdfunding and financial inclusion. The methodology that we followed in this paper is a systematic literature review, as it's proposed by Tanfire and all in 2003. We collected 60 academic papers published between 2010 and 2020 for academic database and published in 65 journals. We basically and mostly research in EBSCO, HOST, and Scopus database. The research was limited to articles that included the keyword or combination crowdfunding. At first, we typed crowdfunding and financial inclusion, then success and financial inclusion, then the three words together: financial inclusion, crowdfunding, and performance. In our methodology, we mainly use English papers, namely scientific articles and working papers. We excluded book information and guide or presentation or seminars from our database. We conducted a complementary research using Google Scholar, followed by a snowball process of retracing in article references, which resulted in the identification of 26 additional articles. For our procedure, we read and join our 16 papers into a database in a systematic and functional manner. Then we classified those papers by author, year of publication, the title, the paper type, the journal name, the journal ranking, research design, the theory used. Then we did another type of classification. We had those people which are studying like donation-based model, then the lending-based model, then the reward-based model. Then we had those people which are studying the link between financial inclusion and crowdfunding, and we have a specific classification about country, if it's national or an international people, or it's not specified in those articles. Then another classification if it's qualitative interview or quantitative study. Discussing now our result. There are two principal literature review. The first one for Bachman and all. They discuss the main finding of 43 of our papers. They are peer-to-peer landing scholarly articles. Then for Filler, Glazer, and Tracy, they are discussing the structure of the crowdfunding research quantitatively based on the various forms of crowdfunding without taking into account the specific content of these studies. We need to mention that there is no comprehensive review of crowdfunding literature that focuses on business as capital seekers. For the theory-related result, broadly speaking, crowdfunding does not accept any theory of its own. There is no single theoretical framework dedicated to explaining or predicting crowdfunding success, and most current studies has drawn on theoretical approaches out of a wide range of disciplines. The most theories that were related or that were developed in our papers were the first set were social theories, mainly social capital theory, social network theory, and social identity theory. Then the shared social value. The second set of theories, which are related to crowdfunding, were associated with economics or behavior psychology. The most important theories are signaling and information asymmetry reduction theory, as developed by Akerlof, and finally so soon by Mavlanova and all in 2012. Then the discrimination basis theories, as statistical discrimination, developed by the different authors. The other set of theories that were collected in our paper are mostly motivation theories, like the theory of communication, and institutional theories, namely the theory developed by Scott and all in 2000. We tried to organize our papers or the theories that were discussed in our database into conceptual clusters to form more widely accepted theory in various studies, and the most people fall into the first category of theories, namely economic psychology in general and signaling. Then the discrimination basis theories about social aspects in general too, like social capital and network, social network theories too. Finally, communication and persuasion theories, specifically the liberation likelihood model that was developed by Pitti and Casiappo. Finally, the result for our systematic literature review based on the main actors in crowdfunding and their motivation to fund or to appeal for that new business model. For the capital seeker, the motivation are to obtain funding in early stage of company's life cycle, namely in the startup or the before startup phase. It's for filling the gap in early stage with no legal obligation and positive signaling, which are offered by crowdfunding. For the second category, investors or capital providers, their motivation are plus the financial consideration, there is the social reputation and intrinsic motivation. Finally, for the platforms, the motivation are mainly the percentage of amount collected by the funded project. Let's discuss now the final part of our results, which is related to crowdfunding and financial inclusion. In reality, the number of people which are studying the combination or the link between crowdfunding and financial inclusion was really rare, but we could classify the contribution of crowdfunding to financial inclusion depending on the different models of crowdfunding. Starting by the lending-based crowdfunding, it can be useful to diminish financial exclusion. It helps to overcome the problems of traditional finance in the sense where the crowdfunding has the potential to close the supply-demand gap of entrepreneurial finance. Uh, it can too lower commission and fees. According to Bolas and Ads, the lending-based crowdfunding competition can benefit consumers by lowering the cost of unsecured loans and encouraging banks to improve their digital offering. For the equity-based crowdfunding, it is the most suitable for startups and to do financial inclusion for small companies. According to Schwartz, crowdfunding is as an ideal platform for bringing venture capital to rural areas, in the sense that crowdfunding removes the geographical constraints and limits that were avoiding or not allowing rural entrepreneurs to connect and obtain financing from angel investors via internet. Now let's talk about implications for future research. For our collected data, it was basically from international or global platforms. Because for the case of Morocco, we cannot talk about national platforms or national database, as we just set up a legal framework for crowdfunding just this year in last November. So we cannot talk about that, but it's encouraged for other countries to collect data from national platforms in order to better represent the majority of market actors, rather than data from few exceptional global platforms that have been the primary resource focus. For the case of crowdfunding in relation with financial inclusion, there has not yet any significant impact of crowdfunding on financial inclusion. From the development standpoint, the key taste of crowdfunding is how much of it's used to promote or to contribute and support financial inclusion and economic growth, rather than to generate funds quickly and cheaply to finance risky and unsustainable investment opportunities. The other limit or implication is there is no adequate legal and regulatory frameworks and tests, credit scoring models, and limited access to technology and the lack of awareness and trust are among of the challenges of our research. Finally, to conclude, we would like to say that our paper provides the full plan field of crowdfunding research and success. It offers a holistic review on research, on crowdfunding models, on theories, on actor motivation, and in its contribution to financial inclusion. But we need to address some restriction and limit that we had. The first one is that our research survey treated just published in peer-reviewed academic journals. It excludes book and presentation, namely information guide from seminars and any other type of presentation which may be interesting when it comes to new research. Secondly, we could have used like different languages for our papers. We basically collected papers that were in English, but it could be helpful and useful to use other papers in other languages such as Chinese, Spanish, and Arabic that could shed more light on contexts that are currently underrepresented in English publication. Passing now to the different references that we, just few of them, of course we couldn't like take all the references that we used in our paper. And finally we would like to thank you for your attention, and hopefully we can meet in another chance. Thank you.